Hey guys, Phil here. I'm just spending a bit of time now going through loads of different acapellas I can throw into my DJ sets, and I thought I could easily give you a lot of tips when it comes to making sure your acapellas are perfect. You see, a lot of DJs will avoid working with acapellas because there's so many things that go wrong, like where do you find your acapellas? How do you sync them up? How do you know that they're working to a grid? How do you know they're the right speed? There's so many things that go wrong. So in this video, I'm going to give you the kind of A to Z of exactly how I get my acapellas to be lined up perfectly in every step that I've gone through myself. So, first things first, the best place to actually go and get your acapellas, I find, is on YouTube. You can just go and search for an acapella like Renegade Master, and you just put it at the end like this, acapella like that, okay? And you can go and find it, and you know, and I can't be bothered to deal with the haters, but the best thing you can do is just rip it straight off YouTube, so deal with it, okay? You can get really good acapellas that way. Now, once you've got your acapellas, this is what you need to do. Put them into your computer program. I'm using REKORDBOX. You can do everything I'm doing here in Serato or anything else, doesn't matter, okay? But what I've done is I've created an acapella playlist. Now, straight away, what I do is I've gone to get all the originals of the songs I've got the acapellas from. So if I come to acapella, I've got like In the Club by 50 Cent, and you come to my secondary playlist and you've got In the Club, the original, right? Now this is really, really important because this is going to help you when it comes to syncing everything up perfectly, okay? Now, the first thing you want to do when you've done that is check the key of the song, not the acapella, because your program will just get it wrong. They're kind of stabbing in the dark when they're trying to work out what key acapellas are in. So you find out what your key is here, 11B, and you go over to the acapella and you go and correct the key. That's the first thing you need to do, so you make sure that the acapella is in the right key. Next thing is lining up the songs. You want to get your acapella so it's to a grid perfectly as if it was the actual song. So the best thing you can do, and as I say, you can do this in loads of different programs, I'm using it in REKORDBOX, is go to performance mode like this. And seeing as Daft Punk have just kind of come to an end, I'm actually going to do it with a Daft Punk song to show you the exact process I go through. So I'm going to put the Daft Punk acapella in the right lane. Then I go to my folder with all the kind of original tracks, and I go and get the actual track and put it in the left-hand lane like this. So they're now lined up on top of each other, okay? Okay, so once we've got the acapella loaded into the right-hand deck and we've got the original song loaded into the left-hand deck, the next thing we need to make sure is that the acapella is the same speed as the original song that we're using, okay? So the way we're going to do this is we're actually just going to make sure they're lined up and play them at the same time, just to make sure that the acapellas are both running at the same speed. This is the next really important thing to check, because what typically happens is people upload acapellas onto YouTube but change the speed and pitch of it so YouTube doesn't take it down, which is a pain for DJs because it's like we just want the acapellas to be perfect. So go to your acapella and find like a definitive point, like a word that you can find to play it from. So I'm just going to play this for a bit. I'm just feeling. Okay, so I'm just going to go from want this feeling, okay? So I'm going to get to the beginning here, set a cue point. I'm just feeling. Okay, and now we're going to go to the original track and we're going to find that exact same point. Here it is. There it is. And we can almost kind of see that the two are very similar right there, okay? So now we've got them lined up. I'm just going to use the shortcuts Z and N, which just kind of plays the left track and the right track at the same time. We're going to have a listen and make sure that those two are basically the same speed. Let's have a listen. I'm just feeling celebration tonight. Celebrate. Don't wait too late. Okay, I've listened to it long enough to know that the acapellas are basically the same speed. We could hear because they were just going at the same time. You can even see it in the waveforms. This is really important, and I have to tell you at this point, if your acapella is the wrong speed, you've got two options moving forward. Option number one, take the acapella and put it into some music production software like Ableton or Logic and then correct the speed by warping it, but you have to know about music production stuff to do that. If you don't know about music production stuff, the other thing you can do is load the track into your DJ decks, find the right speed by using a tempo slider and matching it by ear. So you've got the acapella lined up with the original, and then you kind of match the tempo correctly. So it's like you've worked out what the real speed is, and then record that acapella at that speed, and then you've got that recording, okay? So that's how you would do it, but it's a real palaver. And honestly, I tend to just scrap acapellas that are the wrong speed because it's such a pain. Working with acapellas is a pain anyway because of this whole process, but that's what you do at that point. So, back to this. Now we've worked out that our acapella is the same speed as our original. So now what we want to go and do is make sure that the grid is going to our original song perfectly. So I'm just going to go to, I don't know, like a different phrase of the track here. I'm just going to make sure that this grid is all on phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's all good. Okay, so we know that the grid is to time there. Now we've got to go back to that point of the song where the two align. So I can go to this point here where it says want this feeling and go back to this point here and find it again. There it is. So we just line up those two like this. Now, we know that the grid on the top, so this one here, the actual song, has got the correct grid. And the acapellas below has got the incorrect grid. So now we just have to copy that grid onto our acapella. And this is how I found the easiest way to do it for me, okay? I remove the hot cue we just made. I go to the closest grid option, which as you can see on my mouse here is this one here. But come just below it, right? So just below that point and click on the acapella and drag it to the red line. So I'm gonna click here and drag it to that red line there, okay? Now I make another cue point here. And then we go and get the bar of the original song and drag it along to here. So we now know that that song here, this bar, is aligned with this cue point. I then set a secondary cue point, which I'm going to explain in a second why I do this, but I just come along to the next bar, so this one here, do the same thing, click below it, drag it to this red line here, and set a second cue point, okay? So I now have got A and B, which is aligns with the bars of the original song. Now the next point is we now got to go and change the grid of the acapella, but there's one other thing which I always want to do at this point, is come and check. As you can see here, this says the song that matches it one more time is 122.88. This is another frustration, because you can bet your bottom dollar that Daft Punk didn't make that song to 122.88. But here's the thing, in my experience, REKORDBOX will have it right. So we just check the beat grid, and wherever I go in the song, you can see the beat grid is perfectly lined up. So I can't go changing that from 122.88 to something else, because it's lined up perfectly. So now we've got no other option but go and change our acapella to 122.88, okay? So remember that. The original is 122.88. The acapella is 122.72, so they're unbelievably close anyway. So we're going to grab this, we're going to go into export mode, just so I can go and set the grid properly. I'm going to drag my acapella up into this lane here. I'm going to go to A, and at this point I'm going to go to grid and set this marker here to go to A. And as you'll see now, straight away, B is the red mark. So that's all good. Now, I'm going to do is going to go to 122.88 like this, because that was, I explained why we're doing that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this metronome on with this button here, and I'm going to listen to it and see if it sounds like it's in time. So let's have a quick listen. Celebration tonight. Celebrate. Don't wait too late. No. Right. That sounds good. That sounds good enough to me. Now let me quickly just check my list, because I'm going through this with absolutely everything. Yeah, metronome test, and that's it. That's everything I've done. So now I know that that Daft Punk grid is lined up perfectly. So if I'm doing a DJ set, I know as long as I line up that beat, the bar markers here to the song that's currently playing, it will line up perfectly. It's a right palaver, but this is the only way I've found, or the system I've found, where you make sure that the acapella is the right speed, the right key, and it's got the right beat grids. This is a foolproof way of doing it, okay? So if you just follow those steps, now don't do what I've done, because I've just went and downloaded like 30 different acapellas. I'm doing this with every single one, and it makes me want to rip my hair out. But there we go. Once it's done, you've got your acapellas ready to go and throw into your next DJ set. Hope this has helped. If anyone knows a better way of doing it than this, please let me know, because this seems to be the only way I know about. So there we go. Cheers. See you next time. Ciao.